My name is Sierra, and I'm going to tell you my story. I was 27 years old and working as a company employee when my life changed forever. Last year, I married Justin, marking what I thought would be a beautiful milestone in my life. We lived in a two-family house with his mother Pamela, each of us having our own independent living spaces. Everything seemed perfect until my world turned upside down. After giving birth to my son, I took maternity leave, hoping to create precious memories with my new family. 5 years before, I had lost my mother, and I had been living with the comforting thought that one day, I would show my father his grandchild. But that joy was short-lived. The emotional shock of losing my mother had accelerated my father's already progressing cancer, and he too passed away. Everything happened so suddenly that I felt completely numb, unable to process my thoughts. I didn't even have time to properly grieve for my parents, caught between funeral arrangements, sorting through their belongings, and caring for my infant son. One night, as I lay in bed with my baby, I heard the front door open through the silence of our home. I heard Justin talking to someone with an unfamiliar voice, discussing something about being soaked from the rain. In my drowsy state, I assumed it was just one of Justin's friends and didn't think much of it. But then, the bedroom door burst open with a thunderous bang, and Justin stormed in. He demanded me to leave the house immediately, his voice filled with contempt. When I asked him what was happening, he coldly declared that I was no longer part of his household. Justin's words became increasingly erratic, and beside him stood a young woman with a mocking smile. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks: she was his mistress. She taunted me, saying Justin was sick of me, especially ever since I gave birth. Justin joined in, ordering me to get out immediately. Their words left me completely stunned, frozen in disbelief. Perhaps sensing the tension in the room, my son Michael suddenly began crying intensely. Justin's angry voice boomed through the room, demanding that I keep him quiet. His harsh tone only made Michael cry harder, his tiny body trembling with fear. I quickly gathered Michael in my arms, trying to protect him from this nightmare unfolding before us. "Michael, everything will be all right," I whispered, desperately trying to comfort my crying baby. Justin coldly ordered me to pack my things and leave immediately. When I asked him why he was doing this, my voice trembling with disbelief, he declared that the house now belonged to him and his mistress, and they were starting a new life together, making it clear that I was no longer needed. I questioned his right to make such a unilateral decision, my heart pounding in my chest. His response was brutal and direct, stating that my child and I were nothing but obstacles in his way. Then, without warning, Justin announced his desire for divorce, a mocking smile playing across his face. He arrogantly claimed the house was in his name, leaving me with no right to stay after divorce, then revealed his true intentions about my inheritance. With chilling calculation, he demanded I hand over part of my father's inheritance through legal procedures after the divorce. My world seemed to stop as I asked him if he had been living with me all this time just to get his hands on my inheritance. His cold response, asking, "So what if I did?" sent shivers down my spine. My father had held an important position in a major corporation, making his inheritance a tempting target, but I never imagined my own husband would be one of those predators. "You're despicable," I said, my voice a mixture of anger and heartbreak. Justin scoffed, claiming I was being dramatic and suggesting I was no different from him. When I asked what he meant, confused by his accusation, he threw another shocking accusation at me, claiming I had married him knowing he would inherit his mother's position as CEO of a major corporation. I stood there, stunned, my eyes wide with shock. This was completely new information to me. I protested, telling him I had never heard anything about this and had only met his mother for the first time at our wedding. He lashed out, telling me to stop acting superior, accusing me of always thinking I was smarter and more capable than him. When I asked what he was trying to say, my voice barely above a whisper. He delivered his final blow, calling me a boring woman, especially compared to Christine, who he claimed was full of charm. His words highlighted what he saw as my lack of appeal, cutting deep into my already wounded heart. As if nature itself was reflecting my inner turmoil, a violent typhoon was raging outside. With shaking hands, I pushed the stroller with one hand while dragging a heavy suitcase with the other, fighting against the fierce wind and rain. The storm was merciless, and my umbrella was practically useless as I desperately clutched it, making my way to the nearby park. In this violent storm, the streets were deserted, which, to be honest, was a relief as I didn't want to face anyone at that moment. Lost and confused, with no idea what to do next, I heard faint footsteps through the roaring storm. When I turned around, there stood Pamela, Justin's mother. She gently asked what had happened to me in that terrible weather. But I was too devastated to speak, unable to explain how Justin and his mistress had thrown me out of the house. Since our marriage, Pamela had always maintained a certain distance from us as a couple. She had been so busy with work that she seemed uninterested in our lives. I had even wondered if she disliked me, keeping her distance deliberately. With all this history between us, I couldn't find the words to explain, so I just stood there in silence. Then Pamela, as if nothing unusual had happened, quietly spoke up. She calmly stated that I must have been thrown out of the house. Surprised, I asked her how she knew. She matter-of-factly explained that she had heard Justin's angry shouts from her house and had seen me rushing out. I felt a mix of shame and frustration knowing that Pamela had been aware of everything. At that moment, my emotions overwhelmed me, and my vision blurred with tears. Then Pamela gently took my hand and stroked my head with her other hand. Her voice was gentle as she told me how well I had endured everything and how proud she was of me. Through my tears, I asked if she really meant it. She assured me that of course she did, telling me not to worry anymore because she would be there to help me through this. Surprised by this unexpected kindness, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me as I looked into her face. Pamela gently suggested we should go to her place where we could talk more calmly, understanding that I must have been in a state of panic and confusion. I hesitated, my heart racing at the thought of returning to the house I had just been thrown out of. The fear of Justin discovering us made me tremble inside. Sensing my anxiety, Pamela spoke quietly but firmly, assuring me that her house was safe. She explained that as the owner of the property, no one could question her decisions. With a warm smile, she added that the house was too big for just one person anyway. As she spoke, she took hold of Michael's stroller and began walking back the way we had come. Despite my lingering doubts, I found myself following her. The house was a 2-story duplex, with Justin living upstairs and Pamela's space on the ground floor. I realized then that I had never actually been inside Pamela's home before. Stepping into her house, I was struck by how the space reflected her personality, simple yet perfectly organized. The towel she handed me was incredibly soft, carrying a warm, comforting scent. I could feel my rain-soaked body slowly warming up. In the adjacent room, I was surprised to find neatly folded clothes laid out. Even more surprising was the presence of a crib and baby monitor, all ready for Michael. Confused, I asked her about these preparations. She calmly explained that she had prepared everything, knowing it would be needed eventually. When I questioned what she meant, she simply said it was because of Justin. She explained that since my father's death 2 weeks ago, she had been preparing for Justin to make his move. Overwhelmed with confusion and surprise, I could only ask what she meant. She gently stroked my head, assuring me that she was on my side. That touch reminded me so much of how my mother used to comfort me when I was young. I nodded slightly, feeling a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. Then Pamela headed toward the entrance of the section where Justin and I had lived. As she quietly took out a key and began opening the door, I couldn't help but ask in surprise about how she had access. Although Justin and Pamela were mother and son, they hadn't been particularly close in their daily lives. So why would he have given her a key? Pamela gazed at me quietly, a composed smile playing across her face. She calmly explained that she owned the house. Shocked, I asked her what she meant. She revealed that the house was in her name, making it natural for her to have the key, as she was the one who had built it. I couldn't believe my ears, remembering how Justin had always claimed the house was his. Had that been a lie all along? Seeing my stunned expression, Pamela continued with an almost playful tone, telling me there was still much I didn't know. She suggested we discover these new truths together. With confident steps, she walked into Justin's part of the house. She moved purposefully toward the voices coming from the living room. Still confused, I followed behind her. In the living room, we found Justin and Christine sitting close together on the sofa. They appeared quite intimate. Justin jumped in surprise, hastily adjusting his clothes as he called out to his mother. Christine was visibly uncomfortable, tension evident in her posture. Pamela spoke with remarkable composure, telling them not to be so surprised. She said she was used to this scene, suggesting it must be routine for them. Justin responded with confusion, asking what she meant. Pamela calmly revealed that she knew about all the women he had brought to the house when I wasn't around. She told him there was no need to hide anymore. Justin struggled to maintain his composure as he asked how she knew about this. However, he was clearly shaken, his composed demeanor beginning to crumble. Pamela calmly revealed that everything had been recorded by the entrance security cameras, including the noisy voices of all the women Justin had brought into the house. Justin and Christine's faces instantly flushed red, and they shrank back uncomfortably at this revelation. But Pamela wasn't finished. With an icy voice filled with absolute authority, she demanded that Justin leave the house immediately. Justin's anger flared as he protested, asking why he should be the one to leave when I should be the one moving out in case of divorce. Pamela maintained her composure as she asked him pointedly who he thought had built this house. When Justin responded with confusion, she explained firmly that the house was registered in her name, making it impossible for him to continue living there without her permission. She then added that Michael and I could stay if she decided so. I watched as Justin's face turned pale, his hands trembling slightly at this revelation. Christine, overcome with anger, confronted Justin about his promise that the house would be theirs once I left. Justin muttered in disbelief, clearly shocked that his mother had taken my side. Pamela laughed lightly at his words. She then revealed something that caught me completely off guard, saying that she had actually grown quite fond of me. I couldn't help but stare at her, surprised by this unexpected confession. Pamela's face held a gentle smile. Justin's cold voice cut through the moment as he scoffed at the idea, pointing out how she had barely spoken to me, or even looked at me, since the day I arrived. Pamela maintained her gentle smile as she quietly responded. Pamela revealed that her cold behavior had been intentional all along. When I asked what she meant, she explained that her goal had been to prevent me from becoming Justin's target. Her words completely shattered everything I had believed until that moment. I felt lost and confused, unable to distinguish reality from fiction. So Pamela hadn't hated me after all? But what did she mean by a target? I stared at her intently as I asked what she meant by that word. Her tone softened as she quietly told me she had wanted to apologize for a long time. I remained silent, waiting for her to continue. She apologized for treating me coldly, confessing that she had actually been overjoyed when I became part of their family. When I asked why she had acted that way, She explained it was all to protect me. Her words left me even more confused. She revealed that Justin was a man who would do anything for money. I noticed her eyes drop for a moment before she continued. Then she delivered the most shocking revelation, telling me that Justin had even exploited his own father's death. My mind went completely blank at her words. I whispered in disbelief that it couldn't be true. As I spoke those words, Pamela nodded quietly. She confirmed that Justin had deliberately caused his father's death. I cried out in horror, my whole body trembling at this revelation. Pamela spoke softly, revealing the terrible truth. Pamela revealed that Justin had deliberately caused his father's death to get his inheritance. Her words left me breathless, my whole body trembling as my heart pounded violently in my chest. Such a horrifying reality seemed impossible to accept. Justin shouted in anger, his voice filled with obvious irritation as he denied everything. He insisted that his father's accident was caused by fatigue, citing the police report, and demanded to know how he could be blamed. Though he tried to deny it desperately, there was something frantic about his behavior. Pamela sharply questioned if he was responsible for causing his father's accident. Justin's voice wavered slightly as he asked what she meant. She questioned him about his knowledge of his father's sleep medication and blood pressure pills. Justin reluctantly admitted he had known about the medications. He protested that his father had stopped taking sleeping pills, yet had suddenly fallen asleep during the day, causing the accident. Pamela accused him of switching his father's blood pressure medication with strong sleeping pills. Justin vehemently denied the accusation, shouting that she couldn't accuse people without evidence. But Pamela remained unmoved by his protests. She calmly stated that his current actions toward her were all the evidence she needed. Justin's face tensed up immediately when she said this. Pamela revealed that since moving into the duplex, she had noticed her health gradually declining, and she knew Justin had been sneaking into her house to tamper with her medications. Though Justin denied it, his voice was shaking. Pamela coldly told him to stop his useless resistance. She explained that baby monitors were always installed for when Michael visited, along with multiple security cameras, and all of Justin's actions had been recorded. Pamela's words sent chills down my spine. Justin had tried to do the same thing to Pamela that he had done to his father. Pamela sadly explained that while her husband's poor eyesight had prevented him from noticing the switched medication, she had been aware of Justin's attempts all along. Finally, Justin fell silent, his silence speaking volumes. With a soft sigh, Pamela acknowledged the painful reality of the situation. She expressed her deep sorrow at how her own son could harbor such ugly ambitions and actually attempt to carry them out. I felt a crushing pain in my chest, overwhelmed by the depth of sadness and suffering contained in her words. With a trembling voice, I asked about her earlier statement about protecting me. She explained that if we had been close, I would have become a target just like her, which was why she had deliberately maintained her distance. I was left speechless. To think that Pamela had intentionally acted cold towards me from the beginning, all to protect me. She quietly explained that since we had no direct blood relation, Justin would have no reason to target me if I wasn't close to her. My heart swelled with emotion as I understood the extent of her resolve to protect me. She continued in a gentle tone, confessing that she had actually wanted to build a better relationship with me. I could see both deep sadness and kindness in her eyes. What a painful decision it must have been to recognize her own son's disturbing behavior and still choose to protect others from him. I bit my lip, desperately fighting back tears. I whispered a heartfelt, "Thank you." But Pamela wasn't finished, revealing an even more shocking truth. She told me that Justin had targeted me from the moment we first met. I was completely stunned by this revelation. Pamela pointed out that while my mother had passed away, I was financially stable, and Justin had known about my father's illness from the very beginning. I quietly acknowledged this truth, unable to deny it. In that moment, all the scattered pieces of doubt in my mind suddenly connected. Seeing the change in my expression, Pamela nodded quietly. She confirmed what I was thinking, revealing that Justin had been targeting my father's inheritance all along. The reality hit me hard as I pieced everything together. A sick father and his only daughter, I was the perfect target. Justin had calculated that by marrying me, he would eventually benefit from my father's inheritance once it passed to me. The realization that everything had been orchestrated from the start made my stomach turn. He had even planned for the possibility of divorce, knowing that marital assets would be divided equally. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of this revelation. With firm resolve, I decided it was time to put an end to all this chaos. Looking straight at Justin's dissatisfied expression, I spoke firmly. I told him I understood what he wanted and would agree to the divorce, but made it clear he would never get his hands on my father's inheritance. Justin's eyes widened in shock as he demanded an explanation. He insisted that assets acquired during marriage were shared property, including inherited wealth. I firmly denied his claim. I explained that legally, only assets built during marriage were considered marital property, while inherited assets remained separate personal property. Justin couldn't hide his surprise at this revelation. He muttered in disbelief, his voice barely audible. I calmly continued to explain that inherited property was not included in marital assets, and therefore wouldn't be divided in divorce. Justin stood there, completely bewildered, struggling to comprehend what he was hearing. When he questioned if this was really true, his voice betraying his desperation. I suggested quietly that he could verify this with legal experts if he didn't believe me. I turned to Pamela for confirmation, and she nodded firmly. She reinforced my statement, explaining that no matter how much Justin wanted it, he could never get his hands on my father's inheritance as it was clearly established by law and couldn't be changed by anyone. I watched as Justin's face turned increasingly pale. Christine's expression hardened as her body began to tremble. She cried out in frustration, demanding to know what was happening. She had been told that after the divorce, Justin would get half of my parents' assets, including the house and inheritance. Justin stammered, unable to form a proper response. Christine pressed him further, asking about the luxury bags he had promised her and their planned European vacation. Her voice rose as she expressed her disappointment, having looked forward to these promises. Her anger intensified with each passing moment. Justin stood there helplessly, knowing he had betrayed her expectations, but unable to do anything about it. As I watched them, memories of my past came flooding back. The lonely days during my pregnancy. The pain of enduring Justin's infidelity in silence. The struggle of raising my child alone while desperately searching for daycare and trying to manage the financial burden. All of it had been caused by Justin's self-centered behavior. Anger welled up inside me. But this anger wasn't directed solely at Justin, it was also aimed at myself. Why hadn't I realized these simple truths earlier? In the midst of these thoughts, something suddenly warmed my heart. I glanced to my side to find Pamela watching me, with a gentle smile. She softly stroked my head and spoke with kindness. She assured me not to worry, saying she had already made arrangements for my comfortable return to work after my maternity leave. Surprised, I asked her what she meant. Pamela began to explain quietly. Pamela revealed their company's plans to establish a daycare facility for employees, explaining that once implemented, I could bring Michael to work without worrying about drop-offs and pickups. I was completely taken aback, having no knowledge of such plans. She explained that with the current shortage of daycare facilities becoming a serious issue, the company was taking steps to support its employees. My heart filled with relief and gratitude at her words. I finally understood that Pamela was genuinely committed to supporting me. Her presence in my life suddenly felt more significant than ever before. Still struggling to process everything, I mentioned that I wasn't even an employee of her company. Then Pamela dropped another revelation, telling me that my company had become part of their group 3 months ago. I couldn't help but gasp in surprise. She calmly explained that they were currently working on various system integrations, including the establishment of corporate daycare facilities as part of their enhanced employee benefits. When I asked what this meant, she simply stated that she was the CEO of my company's parent corporation. I stood there, completely stunned by this revelation. She mentioned that this merger had already been announced through company emails, suggesting that I might have missed it while being busy with Michael's care. Indeed, I had been too preoccupied lately to read non-urgent emails. And Justin hadn't read it either, true to his character of showing no interest in matters he deemed irrelevant to himself. Then, Justin showed an astonishing reaction. His whole demeanor suddenly changed to excitement as he exclaimed how amazing this was. He started boasting about being the CEO's son and his inevitable succession to the company, thanking his mother profusely for being such a capable parent. His face bore the expression of someone who thought they had just won life's lottery. Christine's eyes lit up as she chimed in, asking if this meant she would be the future president's wife. She could barely contain her excitement, repeatedly exclaiming how incredible and unbelievable this was. Their conversation was filled with such self-centered and shallow thoughts, creating an atmosphere of incredible discomfort that words could hardly describe. Suddenly, Pamela burst into uncontrollable laughter. She doubled over, tears streaming down her face as she laughed hysterically. Justin became visibly confused and irritated at her reaction. He demanded to know what was so funny and told her to stop laughing. But Pamela couldn't contain herself, her laughter continuing to fill the room. When her laughter finally subsided, she looked at Justin with an amused smile. She said this was just too amusing. Justin's voice carried a hint of anxiety as he asked what she found so amusing. She pointed out how he was talking about himself as if he were already successful. Justin seemed confused by her response. Pamela continued, saying that he was truly entertaining and that few people could make others laugh quite like he did. Justin's face stiffened at her words. Christine chimed in with an indignant voice, demanding to know what Pamela meant. Justin's anger surfaced as he asked why she was mocking them. He insisted he was just stating facts, claiming it was natural for him to succeed his mother as the company's head. Christine eagerly supported his statement. As they continued their arrogant dialogue, suddenly a loud bang echoed through the room. It was the sound of Pamela slamming her hand on the table. The impact scattered items across the table's surface. When I looked to see what had happened, my eyes fell upon numerous photographs. They were images capturing Justin and Christine's inappropriate behavior. Justin stammered in shock, asking what these photographs were. Pamela calmly explained that they were security camera footage capturing his and Christine's inappropriate behavior at the company. Their faces instantly turned pale at this revelation. Pamela continued matter-of-factly, saying that while they might have thought they could keep it hidden, such things always come to light eventually. She stated that these recordings were safely preserved as evidence, then produced several more photographs. The images were shocking, clearly showing Justin and Christine's intimate relationship within the company premises. Christine fell silent while Justin averted his eyes. Pamela spoke with ice in her voice, telling him that if he wanted to be president, he needed to act appropriately and carefully reconsider his current position. The atmosphere In the room changed dramatically. Christine's trembling hands grasped at empty air. Her voice was barely a whisper as she said this wasn't how things were supposed to be. Justin stood frozen, unable to move. Their future had completely crumbled in that moment. Pamela quietly reminded them that inappropriate conduct within a company could attract media attention, and surely they understood the consequences of that. Her words left Justin and Christine completely speechless. Then came her final declaration. With remarkable composure, as if stating the most natural thing in the world, she announced that she was formally ending her parent-child relationship with Justin. Justin's voice was filled with disbelief as he asked what she meant. Justin desperately shouted that this was impossible, reminding her they were parent and child. Pamela's cold gaze pierced through him as she quietly pointed out his lack of basic knowledge about inheritance law. She explained that while legally, the parent-child relationship couldn't be completely dissolved due to blood ties, there were other ways. Justin desperately insisted that his claims must be right then. But Pamela continued coldly, revealing that there were ways to prevent him from inheriting her assets. Justin's voice trembled as he asked what she meant. She calmly explained that she had already taken measures to ensure he wouldn't receive her inheritance, and all the procedures were complete. Justin's face turned deathly pale. Pamela stated matter-of-factly that he wouldn't receive a single penny after her death. Justin desperately clung to his last hope, bringing up his legal right to a statutory portion of inheritance. In that moment, rage filled his eyes. His face turned red as he clenched his fists, his anger finally boiling over. He screamed, questioning if she was really his mother, saying it was impossible for a mother to abandon her son. His voice, filled with both rage and despair, echoed through the room. But Pamela's expression remained unchanged. She quietly responded that her decision was final, regardless of what he said. As tension filled the room, I quickly took out my phone and called the police. Minutes later, the police arrived and restrained Justin despite his violent resistance. Though he struggled fiercely, they finally managed to handcuff him and take him away. Later, during the police investigation, the recordings Pamela had made beforehand became decisive evidence. With this evidence, the police began investigating Justin's past criminal activities. They reopened the investigation into his father's death, now pursuing it as a possible attempted murder case. As the investigation continued, his fraudulent activities and corporate misconduct came to light, leading to multiple criminal charges. Christine was dismissed for violating company policies, and their relationship ultimately came to a complete end. Time passed, and I finally regained my normal life, returning to work. My days now consisted of picking up my son from the company daycare after work and heading home together. As I opened the door one evening, I called out that I was home. Pamela greeted me with a warm smile, welcoming me back and acknowledging my hard day's work. She immediately picked up Michael, gently pressing her cheek against his. She asked if I'd had a long day. I responded by asking if she'd had a difficult day herself. But she simply smiled and shook her head. She told me that having a hard-working person like me around made every day fulfilling for her. She added that her greatest happiness was being able to welcome Michael and me home like this. Her words filled my heart with emotion. We now live together in a house owned by Pamela. Though there was originally a house built when Justin and I first married, Pamela quickly sold it and built this new one. I knew I needed to restart my life. Then Pamela made an unexpected proposal. She asked if I would become her daughter. It was a proposal for adoption. Most people might think it unusual to be adopted by your ex-husband's mother. It would create a complex family registry situation. But I no longer had any connection to Justin. Our bond was more than just that of a mother-in-law and ex-daughter-in-law. She told me that we had both been alone, both fought our battles alone, and suggested that from now on, we should support each other and live together. Those were Pamela's words to me. Her smile radiated warmth, kindness, and deep affection. With profound gratitude for her words, I silently wished for her happiness, now and forever. I find myself constantly grateful for the people around me. Not just my family, but my colleagues at work as well. They welcomed my son and me with open arms and warm hearts. My friends, too, genuinely celebrated our fresh start and stood by me through my struggles. Though my marriage ended in the most painful way possible, I gained something far more valuable: new connections and a new family. Each evening, including tonight, I welcome the peaceful darkness with a heart full of gratitude. Thank you for listening to this long and somewhat complicated story. Before I end, I'd like to share one final thought from my heart. Life is unpredictable. Sometimes the things we believe in crumble away. But beyond that lies new encounters and a new life waiting to unfold. That's what I believe. So if you're facing difficulties now, I want you to know something. Even in the darkest times, there's always light to be found. Finding it might not be easy. But remember, you're never alone. As long as you don't give up looking forward, a path will open before you. So don't worry. You will overcome this. I know there's always a way out. It might not be immediately visible. But somewhere, light is waiting for you. And if you need someone to lean on, I'm here. Just as you've listened to my story, I want to hear yours when times are tough. What have you learned from your experiences? What challenges have you overcome? I'm waiting to hear your words. Because we all grow together in this journey of life.